In the 1970s, a Canadian psychologist named Bruce Alexander looked at everything science believed about addiction and decided it was wrong. The classic experiments were straightforward. Researchers placed rats alone in small cages, gave them 2 water bottles, one pure and one laced with morphine, and watched. The rats chose morphine, repeatedly, compulsively. Many drank until they died. And the scientific conclusion of the era was immediate. The drug is the problem. The substance creates the addiction. Alexander was not convinced. He looked at that rat, alone in a barren cage with nothing to do, no other rat nearby, no stimulation of any kind, and he thought something no one else had bothered to think. Any creature would become dependent under those conditions. Not because the drug is irresistible, but because there is nothing in that environment worth more than the relief it provides. So he built what became known as Rat Park. A large, enriched space filled with tunnels, toys, other rats, opportunities for social interaction, for play, for everything that makes sense in a rat's life. He offered those rats the same 2 water bottles. The Rat Park rats tried the morphine water. Some tried it more than once, but they consumed dramatically less than the isolated rats. Several stopped touching it entirely. The drug was identical. The only variable was the environment. Now pause on that for a moment. Because what Alexander proved in a cage full of rats in 1977 is the most important thing anyone has ever discovered about why human beings cannot stop doing the things that are destroying them. And I suspect it applies to you in at least one area of your life right now, even if you have never once thought of yourself as an addict. That is exactly what this video is going to show you. Most people hear the word addiction and picture something specific. A person with a needle in their arm, someone shaking on a bathroom floor, someone who lost everything to alcohol or cocaine. And because that image is so extreme, most people conclude they have nothing to worry about. They are not addicts. They are just scrolling a lot. They are just eating when they are stressed. They are just watching a bit too much. Just gambling a little. Just checking for likes. Just numbing out at the end of a brutal day. The problem is that addiction, from a neuroscientific standpoint, has nothing to do with the substance. It has to do with the pattern. Addiction is any behavior that a person executes in a repetitive and automatic way to relieve discomfort, that generates negative consequences in their life, and that they cannot stop despite those consequences. That is the clinical definition. And by that definition, the majority of people alive right now are addicted to something, not metaphorically, neurologically. 9 hours per day on a phone, on average, for adults in most developed countries. Not 9 hours of purposeful use. 9 hours of compulsive, fragmented, disorganized consumption. Studies tracking pornography use show rates of habitual dependency that clinical psychologists describe as a silent epidemic. Compulsive eating, driven not by hunger but by emotional regulation, now affects a larger percentage of the population than traditional substance addiction by nearly every metric. And none of the people living inside these patterns identify as addicts, because the behaviors have been normalized, monetized, and in many cases, actively engineered by the companies profiting from them. To understand why escape feels impossible, you need to understand what your brain is actually doing when a habit becomes a dependency. Every time you perform an action and it produces a positive result, your brain records it. It strengthens the neural connections between the neurons that participated in that behavior. You were anxious. You opened Instagram. The tension eased slightly. Your brain noted the result. If it works a second time, the connection reinforces. By the 10th time, it is deeply grooved. By the 100th time, something fundamental has shifted. In the beginning, the region governing this behavior is the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for evaluation, deliberation, and conscious decision-making. You are still choosing, still weighing whether the action is worth it. But as the behavior repeats and consistently delivers relief, the brain makes a calculation. This is proven. It works every time. There is no reason to spend energy re-evaluating it each time. So it transfers control of that behavior to deeper, older, more automatic structures, specifically the basal ganglia and the striatum. From that moment forward, the behavior is no longer a decision. It is a script. Your brain encounters the cue, runs the script, and the behavior executes before your conscious mind has even entered the room. You have experienced this with something harmless, learning to drive. At first, every element demanded your full attention. How hard to grip the wheel, how much pressure on the clutch, reading the road while managing the pedals. Every micro decision was effortful and exhausting. But after weeks, then months, the brain automated it. Most people have driven an entire familiar route and arrived without any memory of the journey because the prefrontal cortex had completely handed off the task to the automatic systems. Now apply that same mechanism to a behavior that requires no training period, no weeks of discomfort, no technical learning curve. A behavior that produces a neurochemical reward that dwarfs what driving ever provided. The automatization does not take months, it can take days. In some cases, days is generous. And once that script is written into your automatic systems, willpower becomes almost entirely irrelevant. Because willpower is a prefrontal cortex tool, and your prefrontal cortex is no longer the one running the program. This is the point where everything most people believe about breaking bad habits falls apart. And it is the most important thing I will say in this entire video, so I need you to hear it carefully. You are not failing because you lack discipline. You are failing because you are fighting in the wrong place. You do not make your critical mistake when you surrender to the craving. You make it when you walk into range of the trigger. The moment you sit in the chair where you always watched before. The moment the clock hits the time of day when the behavior always ran. The moment you open the app that always preceded the one you are trying to quit. The moment you walk into the environment where the behavior was formed. At that point, your brain has already released anticipatory dopamine. The reward system has already been activated. The script has already started running. And no amount of willpower, no declaration of resolve, no motivational speech you have ever heard will be sufficient to override a fully activated automatic neural sequence. The research on this is unambiguous. Discipline does not defeat a triggered craving. Distance prevents the trigger from firing in the first place. And now add to all of this the environment most people are actually living in. Chronic financial stress that does not resolve between weeks, that compounds across years, that sits underneath every decision like a current that never stops pulling. Social comparison, operating at a scale that has never existed in human history, every waking hour spent adjacent to curated evidence that other people are living more, earning more, looking better, moving faster. Loneliness disguised as connectivity, a phone full of contacts, and a life with almost no one in it who knows what is actually happening. An absence of meaningful direction, of work that feels connected to something real, of days that end with the sense that anything worth doing was done. Routines that drain energy without producing anything that feels proportionate to what they cost. Environments built, in many cases with extraordinary technical precision and billions of dollars of behavioral research, to hold you in the neurological state most likely to reach for the next hit. Look at that rat alone in the cage. Remove its agency, its relationships, its capacity to build or explore or connect. Give it nothing that makes life feel worth living. And then place a lever that produces instant chemical relief directly within reach. The rat is not making a moral choice when it presses that lever. It is making the only rational response to an irrational environment. Now look at the average person navigating the year. The comparison is not comfortable, but it is precise. The cycle this creates is not a moral failure. It is a predictable biological outcome. Negative emotion drives the search for fast relief. Fast relief consolidates into automatic behavior. Automatic behavior produces shame, depletion, and more negative emotion. The shame reinforces the belief that the problem is personal weakness, because that is the narrative that has been sold most consistently and most profitably. And the cycle seals. Pain generates the addiction. Addiction generates more pain. The person stays inside it, convinced the problem is their character, while the actual problem is the architecture of the environment they are trying to survive. What I am going to give you now is not a list of tips. It is a sequence. 5 interventions that work because they address the actual biological mechanism, not the symptom. Follow them in order. Do not skip to the ones that sound easiest. The first intervention is distance, not willpower. Distance. If the trigger fires before your conscious mind can intervene, then preventing the trigger from firing is the only move that actually works. This means physically restructuring your environment to increase the friction between you and the cue that starts the sequence. If the phone is the vehicle, the phone does not sleep in your bedroom. It is in another room, turned off, and the apps that carry the behavior have usage limits or are deleted entirely. If food is the mechanism, then the food that drives the compulsive pattern does not enter your home. You do not navigate the aisle where it lives. You do not install the delivery app that makes it available in 8 minutes at midnight. These changes sound obvious, and they are, because the principle behind them is obvious. If the stimulus is not present, the anticipatory dopamine does not fire. If the dopamine does not fire, the script does not run. If the script does not run, you did not need willpower at all. But distance alone is not sufficient, because every addictive behavior has a network of triggers surrounding it, cues that precede the behavior and prepare the brain for execution. A time of day, a specific emotional state, a certain companion, a particular location, a type of content that primes the neurological sequence. Mapping your personal trigger network is not optional. It is the difference between managing the addiction and being blindsided by it on a Thursday afternoon when you thought you were doing well. You cannot avoid every trigger, but when you know what they are, you can stop being ambushed. There is one more layer to the trigger network that deserves direct attention, because it is the layer most people underestimate. Emotional states are triggers just as much as physical environments. Loneliness is a trigger. Boredom is a trigger. The specific quality of anxiety that arrives on Sunday evening before a difficult week is a trigger. The exhaustion that follows a hard conversation is a trigger. What this means in practice is that emotional regulation and addiction management are not separate projects. They are the same project. Every time you learn to sit with a difficult emotional state without reaching for the automatic behavior, you weaken the neural pathway connecting that state to the behavior. Every time you reach for the behavior the moment that state appears, you reinforce it. The emotional work and the behavioral work are not parallel tracks. They are the same circuit. The second intervention is connection, because isolation is the most reliable accelerant of addiction that exists. The rat park experiment was not just about drugs. It was about what happens to a living creature when its environment cannot provide genuine belonging, engagement, and meaning. The rats in the isolated cages were not morally weaker than the rats in the park. They were emptier, and they filled the emptiness with the only thing available. Every major longitudinal study on addiction recovery identifies social connection as one of the strongest protective factors against relapse. Not the most dramatic intervention, not the most technically sophisticated, the most consistent. Find one person who understands what you are trying to do. Not to confess to, not to be accountable to in a punitive sense, but to build something alongside so that the emptiness the addiction was filling starts to have a different occupant. The third intervention is to turn the process into a game you can win daily. The brain's reward system responds far more powerfully to frequent, nearby reinforcement than to distant, abstract goals. Telling yourself you will never engage in the behavior again is a promise your nervous system has no mechanism to keep and no reason to believe. It is too far away. The alternative is radical proximity. Today only. Just today. Mark it. Physically. On paper. On a calendar. Somewhere tangible. Each mark is a small neurochemical event. A real, if modest, dose of reward. Alcoholics. Anonymous has operated on this principle for decades. The instruction is not to stop drinking forever. It is to not drink today. And then, when tomorrow comes, to make the same decision again. The accumulation of these single-day decisions is what a year of sobriety looks like from the inside. One day at a time is not a cliché. It is applied neuroscience. The fourth intervention is substitution, but not the kind most people attempt. The behavioral evidence is clear that attempting to simply stop an addictive behavior without replacing it with something fails at extremely high rates. The brain built that behavior into the automatic sequence because it was solving a real problem. That problem does not disappear when the behavior stops. It needs a new solution. The error most people make is trying to leap from the addictive behavior to a completely incompatible replacement. From pornography to meditation, from compulsive eating to clean nutrition, from scrolling to journaling. The neurological distance between those poles is too vast. The brain rejects it. What works is a graduated sequence of substitutions, each one slightly less destructive than the one before. Frustrated and heading toward the behavior? Walk around the block. Watch something that requires sustained attention rather than a 3-second dopamine loop. Drink water. Make a phone call. None of these are the destination. They are a step away from the worst option, which is the only thing that matters in that moment. As the reward system recalibrates over time, the substitutions can advance. But respect the sequence. Skipping it does not produce faster results. It produces relapse. The fifth and final intervention is the one most people never fully accept, because it requires a level of honesty about the permanent nature of this problem that our culture is not designed to support. Once a neural circuit has been reinforced thousands of times, it does not disappear. The research is consistent on this point across decades of neuroscience and addiction medicine. The circuit weakens. It loses dominance. The automatic pull diminishes significantly with time and deliberate practice, but the encoding remains. A person who stopped smoking 20 years ago, who has not touched a cigarette in 2 decades, who has built an entirely different life, can still feel a sharp and unmistakable craving during a moment of extreme stress or unexpected proximity to the original cue. Not because they have failed, not because they were never truly free, but because the structural change written into the brain by thousands of repetitions does not erase itself simply because behavior changed. This is not a sentence. It is a map. If you know the circuit is still there, you stop being blindsided by the moments when it activates. You stop interpreting those moments as proof that nothing has changed or that all the work was wasted. You understand the neuroscience of what is happening? A cue appeared. The circuit fired. An old signal ran through an old pathway. That is all that occurred. It is not a revelation about your character. It is a biological event that you can now respond to differently than you did before you understood the mechanism. What destroys most people in recovery is not the craving. It is what they make the craving mean. They interpret the activation of an old circuit as evidence that they are still the same person, still as trapped, still fundamentally broken in a way that cannot be fixed. And from inside that interpretation, surrendering to the behavior feels not like a choice, but like a confirmation of something they already believed about themselves. The neuroscience does not support that interpretation. The circuit firing is not your identity. It is traffic in a neural pathway that still exists, and your only job in that moment is to not let the traffic reach its old destination. The slip is not the failure. Using the slip to shut down the entire process, to say I tried and it did not work, to go back to the cage and call it home, that is the only failure this process contains. And understanding clearly why the circuit persists makes it significantly harder to reach for that justification, because you can see exactly what is happening and exactly what it is not. The 5 interventions will not resolve everything immediately. Recovery from any automatic behavioral pattern is a process that operates on a timeline that does not care about your urgency. But following them puts you on a path that most people never find, because most people never understand what they are actually fighting. They fight themselves, they fight their character, they fight their willpower, and they lose, not because they are weak, but because they are fighting in the wrong arena entirely. If you recognize yourself in anything said in this video, and you feel that the pattern is beyond what you can navigate alone, seek professional support. Not because seeking help indicates weakness, because seeking help is the most strategically intelligent response to a problem that has a biological basis and responds to clinical intervention. The link in the description connects you to evidence-based psychiatry and psychology available online. But seek support anywhere. The only thing that guarantees the cycle continues is fighting it alone inside the same cage that built it. One last thing before you go. You watched this entire video. That already separates you from the majority of people who clicked on it, because the majority of people who clicked were not ready to stay with something this uncomfortable for this long. That is not a small thing. Readiness to face the mechanism is the first condition for changing the outcome. What you do with the next hour matters more than what you have done with the last year. The cage is not locked from the outside. It never was.